play Castlevania for the NES backwards, it's about a mentally deranged Dennis the Menace called Simon Belmont, who invades a shelter for social outcasts, trolls everyone he encounters, parkours his way out of there, and accidentally fulfills his family's age-long contractual obligation of ridding a certain castle of monsters by pissing them off so much that they go after him and invade the very same towns that paid for the job. The game starts with the protagonist somewhere in the middle of a sea of forests, throwing rocks at a tax collector down below who just doesn't know when to stop, and accidentally breaking the spell that made the aforementioned castle invisible to human sight. Either that or the monsters saw Simon approaching basically the only place a thing as big as a castle could stand on, and, with an "Oosh, in McCray!" type expression frozen on their faces, began to fortify it in a feverish panic. This would explain why the castle's interior design is so early up, as evidenced by the night they bricked in out of our sight, and why everybody was too busy to notice Belmont was already inside, and as inside as it gets, because we first find Belmont in the chamber of who's literally the head of his establishment, Dracula. This "may I speak with the manager" moment quickly goes south, and Dracula tries scaring Simon off with his fiendish appearance, while at the same time trying to avoid the heavy plastic yo-yo one could cave a skull in that Belmont is swinging at him. Unfortunately, it made him look like he's trying to flee, but his puny little wings are unable to carry his weight, which only emboldened Belmont. Then Dracula decides that he might evoke more sympathy from him if he shows himself to be more human, so he shifts into his humanoid form. Suffice to say, it didn't work, and in fact made Simon target the thief Dracula prided himself in taking very good care of, never missing a checkup at the dentist, at least until he ran out of him. "You can't do anything to me," he said. "I'm a Belmont, and special." "I can see that," said Dracula, teleporting back and forth before finally deciding to act like the better man that he was. He kept a calm head, and only that, and excused himself by retreating through the floor. In other words, Dracula was having none of it, and basically went back the to sleep in another, probably secret chamber, to deal with him later. Probably by filing a formal complaint. The Belmonts hate them bad PRs. What is he supposed to do? Take it like Lara's butler? Good luck getting out of the fridge, good butt. Yeah, right. What would you do if such a brat barged into your place and started jumping on your resting place? He probably it in mid-job too, but it was cut due to Nessie's memory limitations. Wait, what am I even saying? It's not just about a coffin. Belmont basically desecrated one huge resting place, both literally and figuratively. For what is the castle if not a place for the homeless, disfigured outcasts, mutants, and magic revenge victims to rest from being persecuted by the so-called normal people? These people obviously have first world problems and aren't content with the monsters living somewhere far, far away from them. They want them gone. It's much like with the filthy rich Lady Rothschild asking her husband if he could move the poor part of Africa because it's ruining her view from the top of the luxury hotel. Is there then still any room to wonder the master went apeshit when they saw what he did? But what did he do? What we've seen so far? It can't be worse when the he has to put up with as a manager. Oh, right. You don't know what he did yet. So let me tell you what he did. After quote-unquote defeating Dracula by making him act like the centuries-old adult that he is, he decided it's time to get the hell out of there, but not before sticking sticky sticks of lit dynamite to the walls along his path. That had to piss the old folks off and drive at least some of the survivors into the great wide open to get revenge. And much like with different races in real life, we all look like Belmonts to them. So, if a zombie bashes you in the head with a greystone, calling you Simon, please have the decency to show some compassion. The poor thing's just confused. Among those who had the courage to try to talk some sense into him were fairies that took on the shape of a heart. That's why the hearts appear to be alive. To appeal to Belmont's heart in the language of symbols, a language he was by all accounts supposed to understand. But the plan just backfired as he just whipped them all away. You could almost say their thoughts had the complete opposite effect. And they did. He killed them not because he doesn't have a heart, it's because he has too many. He's the only person, fictional or otherwise, who has heart cancer, and, much like the liver of the mythical Prometheus, it keeps growing and growing. What's different is that it's also multiplying like some sort of parasite. So, what does it have to do with the heart-shaped fairies? Well, not only do they remind him of his ailment, but even seem to mock it. They know, and that's why they have to be destroyed. Anyway, this disease is the reason why he has to carve the excess hearts out along the way. That's also the reason why he's exercising by doing all those crazy stunts, and why he's so angry. Like many sport brats, he's blaming the whole wide world for his condition. In fact, he's like someone who took catching an STD really badly. Much like the people who during the World of Warcraft plague, also called corrupted blood incident, went out of their way to infect as many low-level players as possible. That's not unlike some people who know they tested positive for STDs like HIV, you'd feel like sharing without taking the credit for their quote-unquote presence. While it is evil, on some level I can understand them. When I am depressed, nothing ticks me off more than people with perfect lives being happy about trivia or bragging about small, underwhelming successes. What's scarier though is that some scientists said the corrupted blood incident is an accurate simulation of a real-world epidemic, and they're so convinced of it that they based their study on it. Do you remember the line, "What is a man but a miserable pile of secrets?" Dracula utters before off to attend to businesses more worthy of the time of a timeless being. It basically says that Simon is trying to do something unspeakably evil out of a sense of being hurt by the world, and to keep what happened here a secret to make it look like an act of great courage. And what is this heinous act he's talking about? Killing a lot of innocents out of a sense of being a victim of fate or its injustice, in order to gain approval or acceptance of people he actually hates for being too happy, by making these peaceful creatures into bloodthirsty monsters and bragging what a great fight he put up against these vicious beasts. No one is supposed to know what he did in this castle. No one, not even the f***ing fairies. And the "have at you" that follows his line only confirms it. It's in fact short for "have a look at you" or "look at yourself with a critical eye." It shouldn't come off as a surprise when I say that he's totally right. Belmont is so afraid of being seen as a monster, which technically, due to his condition he already is, that he seeks to destroy the peaceful freaks inhabiting the castle so there will be no one to compare him to. Or at least to prove that if he was a monster, he wouldn't kill off his own kind. Well, we can see how it can easily backfire. Killing your own kind makes you a sort of monster more than anything else. He also does that to claim later that the multiple hearts people hear beating out of sync in his chest reflect his inhuman courage, and that it's a gift from the gods who are clearly okay with his existence. To be honest, he can speak of luck that he was born in an epoch where the heart was still associated with courage, because having multiple balls would be impractical to say the least. Not to mention he'd be the only protagonist for whom the hero's journey would consist of leaving a basso and returning a soprano. So far, some of his motivations may seem legit, but don't let that fool you. It all stems from something far more sinister, which I will discuss later on. No amount of excuses, however, will disguise the fact that Belmont is a jack to bats. He has no qualms about hitting them with his yo-yo, even though they are clearly afraid of him. He also doesn't think twice about grabbing onto them to increase his chances of getting to places that are hard to access, possibly damaging their wings or breaking their bones in the process and making them fall to their deaths. In fact, he's an a-hole not only to bats. He clearly takes great pleasure from whipping ghosts with the same quote-unquote chain they rustled in the attic in his childhood to make him wet his bed. In case you couldn't already tell by his behavior, Belmont is an aristocrat, and as an aristocrat he loves the working class like the sewer maintenance workers with all his cancerous heart. They have clearly felt the master's whip on their back before, because whenever they see Simon, they just straight out commit suicide by jumping into water. Red skeletons, on the other hand, just crawl into a fetal position and wish they were never born, or never died, or were born white and not red, or whatever it is that makes Belmont hate them. Further down, he encounters what looks like mummies, but could very well be a couple of burn victims. And what is the best way to go about the delicate trauma of a burn victim? Chase them into a corner and set fire to their feet! On his way out, he also encounters flying Medusa heads, who are so busy orchestrating the construction of anti-Belmont defenses that they don't even notice Simon. Not even when they run him over. If they did, they'd surely turn him into stone. But they're so absent-minded, so concentrated on their thoughts and the messages they are to deliver, that all the sensory input doesn't even register. They're literally looking without seeing, seeing without looking. They're so busy they don't even stop to exchange messages, but shout them to each other on the move. They have to remember every message a passing Medusa head passes on to them and think of what to tell each and every head they meet on the way. They don't even stop to make sure the other heads heard them right. So it's no wonder they get the messages all mixed up. More seamen to section 3C! More seamen coming right up! It's no wonder this castle even stands straight. As if the fact Belmont was trespassing wasn't enough, he does some crazy free-running risking severe self-injury and burdening Dracula with the possible consequences of getting sued for ordering the construction of something that doesn't rise up to safety standards, even though it was meant to keep him outside of its walls. Because apparently the world of Castlevania is much like American malls, where you can sue owners for not being able to predict in what way an idiot will try to endanger themselves next. You could say Dracula has the means to defend himself, but who would you rather trust? Someone from a respected dynasty of people savers, or a guy who looks like he eats blueberries by dipping his face in the basket full of them? Later, he encounters the real Medusa, and let me be clear, it's a part of the game that sends the wrong kind of message to both men and women. That if you beat your women enough, they'll turn pretty, docile, taciturn, and limit their existence to eager awaiting for your return home. The downside is the swelling that makes their heads look like pest dispensers, then again it makes them less likely to run away from you if they can't fit their head through the door. Belmont not only has no qualms about blowing the entire castle up with the outcasts still inside, pitching the survivors against townsfolk, because once they stop being excited about his deed, they'll turn to being the ungrateful, selfish a-holes, and this is more than enough to make him want to see them die. But also humiliates them and takes advantage of them one last time by drawing magic from them, Final Fantasy VIII style. In fact, that may very well be what Dracula was trying to do with all these balls of energy, to tire him out by drawing powers from him until he falls asleep, and then let him wake up naked in a ditch outside the castle. Someone could say, but it all doesn't matter because the reverse storyline never happened. Well, in one of the Castlevania games you have to, in fact, go through the reversed castle to get the true ending, and it's very possible it's not the only thing that's reversed, the story for example. Considering the fact that most Castlevania games are at their basic structure level the same reverse storyline may apply to all Castlevania games. The game I mentioned is just one that decided to show it. In conclusion, it turns out that Belmont's mental state is a double burger of vanity and megalomania, further evidenced by his thoughts at the beginning. He barely did anything, yet he congratulates himself for playing the greatest role in this story. Besides, what pretentious a-hole do you have to be to call yourself Beautiful Mountain? Comparing yourself to something as indestructible and imposing as a mountain is a power fantasy, and calling yourself beautiful is as vain as it gets. Just look at how smug he looks when he moonwalks out of the castle's gate. Just look at it. He's all like, woo-hoo, I did it! Time for a victory dance, woo yeah! He even seems to have forgotten about the limp the gods punished him with for his crimes against non-humanity. But that's not all. He is also delusional. He thinks actors like Bela Lugosi are a monster, or death incarnate to be exact. and when he finally meets someone who looks like this monster, he projects the image of the actor he hates on this malnourished, rag-wearing, peaceful scrap metal collector. Yup, that's right. Death is a scrap metal collector with a magnetic field around him that helps him collect metal. If you ever wondered why Death always finds people no matter where they are, it's because they always have something metal on them. So, you are telling me that in order to be immortal I have to be naked? Yep. The Greek gods went around with business in their birthday suits. Have you ever heard of a streaker that's been shot? No, because streakers are immune to bullets. They have to be caught first and then stripped of their power by being forcefully dressed. Still not convinced? Name the first case off the top of your head of a streaker that's been shot by the police. I dare you. What is it? I thought so. Being butt naked gives you God mode. Greek God mode. On top of it all, Simon is a pyromaniac. Just look at all those dynamites, holy waters that burn on the ground. As one of the early episodes of Criminal Minds said, pyromania is very often caused by being sexually impotent. Setting fire to things is Belmont's only way to get off. Think that's a stretch? Well, what is Belmont running around with? Do you think he chose the most flaccid weapon of all without a reason? I think not. What's more, the fact of heart cancer drawing away all the blood from his crotch and brain perfectly explains why he's both a quote-unquote downer and a dimwit. To be honest, the very title, Castlevania, sounds almost like a disease or disorder in itself. But as opposed to the pyromaniac, a Castlevaniac gets his kicks from blowing up castles and other haunted places, and should under no circumstances be given sequels. Unless it's Simon's Quest. God, did the son of a bastard deserve that one. Too bad Simon turned out to be the one who got to bone a lady and produced a whole bunch of other outfits.